Hi, everybody. It's the second installment of the Quarantine Plays. This piece is called All Blues. We hear Miles Davis' song Freddie the Freeloader. Sound fades, and we fade in on Gary, 30-something man, married, two kids, a job he's doing from home, and a huge mortgage. He's tired. His head is down. He lifts his head to look into the camera, shakes his head, and then rubs his face with his hands. I can't believe I agreed to do this, but I did. And Gary Walcott is nothing if not a man of his word. He rubs his hands together quickly and then claps them. All right, it's Wednesday night. You said you wanted a rundown of our daily lives here at Casa Walcott, so here it is. He looks at his watch. It's about 9:30 p.m. I have successfully fed and bathed my two children, Marcus and Deborah. They have been deposited into their separate beds, and hopefully within the next 10 minutes they'll be asleep. And then I can clean the dinner dishes and figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do with them tomorrow, according to this stack of information I've been given by the school district. I think that tomorrow is math day, which frankly none of us are looking forward to. Marcus is on his 7 times table, and Deborah is dealing with the baffling idea that adding numbers and then subtracting them actually can be fun. Me? I'm just hoping for dear life they don't ask a question I can't come up with an answer to. Monday's lesson on American history quickly turned into a recess when my little buddy Marcus wanted to know why the Indians and the settlers couldn't just get along like he has to do with Joey Piscadero, the bully of the 3rd grade. I said I had no idea and sent him and his sister out to play in the backyard. How do you answer a thing like that for a 9-year-old? How do I explain the dynamics of the subjugation of an entire group of people by a bunch of white Europeans in the name of commerce? Every teacher in every grade in every school should be paid 3 times what they're getting. And if they don't get it after all this is over, then I think every teacher should say, fine, you teach them then. I bet we'd come up with the money then. He takes a long drink from a bottle of beer. I know I said I wouldn't drink when I was just the kids and I, but frankly, I need this. He takes another long drink, picks up a piece of paper and begins to read. And now for today's report. At 8 a.m., the troops were awakened. At least that was what was supposed to happen. The kids had, in fact, been up since 6 o'clock. They were kind enough to hold off their first knockdown drag-out fight until 6:36. At which time, thinking that we were being invaded by screaming banshees, I bolted out of bed and ran into the family room to find Marcus standing on top of Deb with a plunger in one hand and a lid from a trash can in the other, screaming at the top of his lungs, victory. Deborah is, of course, screaming bloody murder for him to get off of her. After quelling the rebellion, we had breakfast. Now, I had every intention of cooking something nutritious like eggs, but the inmates refused and demanded sugar cereal. Having not had any coffee yet, I was weak, I admit it. So sugar Posty Pops it was. Like good little soldiers, they ate in silence, apparently storing up energy for the long siege ahead. He takes another swig of beer. Marcus finished first. He ran from the table, donned his shield and sword, apparently preparing himself for a counterattack from his sister. Deb took her time with her meal, carefully spelling her name in soggy cereal on the table. Spelling check. Spelling lesson, check. I had Marcus scream, for God, England, and St. George, before running through the house trying to kill Frenchmen. World history lesson, check. After cleaning up the writings of Miss Deborah and before Marcus could attack Agincourt, we gathered together to do current events. I have to say that the news on CNN Kids was particularly dark today. Lots of news of the virus, of course, but I know we shouldn't be trying to keep the world from them, but giving death tolls and counts of kids that are sick seemed a bit more than was necessary. Deborah turned to me and said, Daddy, are we going to get sick? Marcus, in the most socially aware voice, said, that's just the stupid people who go out without masks. I love that kid. Deb seemed okay with that answer, and she watched a fluff piece about ostriches. After current events, it was time for some real reading. I let Marcus pull from the pre-approved list of comic books and sent him to a recliner with a glass of juice and told him he couldn't get up until he was finished. and there would also be a test on it after he finished it. There was much grumbling, but I reminded him he could be reading Charlotte's Web, and he quieted right down. Deb and I snuggled on the couch, and she and I read Pete the Cat, a stirring novel about Pete's first trip to the beach. I was surprised there weren't at least a few pages dedicated to Pete's use of the sand dune as a litter box, but alas, there was no mention of Pete's elimination protocols. He takes the last swig from the bottle, turning it upright, trying to get the very last drop. After finishing the assigned reading materials, the test on Spider-Man 789A, we adjourned to the backyard for recess. It was 10:30 and I was ready for a nap. Kids were swinging, the dog was lying in the sun, I was sitting on the deck. It was genuinely peaceful. I closed my eyes and I thought of you. I could see you head to toe in PPE, the bridge of your bunny nose red and irritated from all the masks and shields and eyeglasses you have to wear every day to protect yourself from this thing that is taking you away from the kids and I. I thought of you desperately struggling with one patient after another, so hard trying to keep them from becoming just another statistic. I could see you holding an old man's hand as he tried to breathe with a tube shoved down his throat. I could see you comforting him as I've seen you do 1,000 times with the kids after they had skinned their knees or bumped their heads. That compassion, that tenderness is why I married you. It's why I never blinked when you said you'd stay at the hospital instead of coming home. You were doing it to protect us. And even though we miss you and we need you, we understand. Or at least we're trying. He stops and wipes his eyes and picks up the paper. The quiet outside was interrupted by Deborah screaming, "Dad!" She had found a beetle crawling across the flower bed. Seemed like a good place to start a science lesson. So I took out my phone and snapped some pictures saying we would go inside and try and figure out what kind of bug it was. Marcus wanted to do other bugs too, so we spent an hour looking for bugs in our yard and taking selfies with them. Everything was fine until the dog stirred up a wasp nest and we all had to run for the house. The kids looked through the pictures while I whipped up some of my special bologna and guacamole sandwiches with a side of carrot sticks and cream cheese and a beverage of half apple juice, half sparkling water. The cafeteria food at J.B. Nelson was never like this, I can tell you. I put on some Miles Davis, and it's like we were at a club in New York in the 50s. Deb said she liked the music. She said it was crazy, but in a good way. Marcus had no opinion. We retired to the family room with every intention of classifying our photo of the bugs, but whether it was the cool jazz or the excitement of the morning, in less than 15 minutes they were both fading and eventually drifted off on the sofa, both of them with their heads in my lap. He turns the beer over and realizes he doesn't have any more. "I'll be right back." Gets up from the screen and goes off. We hear a fridge open and then a bottle being opened. He comes back into view. Can you imagine if there had been a shortage of beer instead of toilet paper? The world would have come to a stop and every resource would spring into action. He takes another swig. Sitting on the sofa watching the kids sleep, I realized what kind of world we must be leaving them. Everything seems so chaotic. Everything seems disjointed. Nobody takes time to enjoy their life. This horrible thing has given me anything. It's made me see the little moments, the things that used to fly by, and I'd never notice. I sat in the grass for 10 minutes this morning and watched a caterpillar eat a leaf. Before all of this, I would have sprinted to the shed for a can of something and soaked the marvel of creation so it wouldn't destroy your black-eyed Susans. But instead I watched. I just watched. And so did the kids. I'll send you a photo later. It was amazing. It's hard to describe how torn I am. On one hand, I can't wait to get back to the office. I miss the bustle and the noise, but I also miss this, the quiet, the chance to hold my kids, the chance to walk the dog and make bologna sandwiches. He takes a sip. Anyway, after the nap, we did the bug thing. Marcus made a PowerPoint presentation, and he sent it to his teacher. That kid can be such a brown nose. Deborah played with her dolls. At about 3 o'clock, we took the dog for a walk. I saw Mrs. Albertson. Deborah wouldn't let us get any closer to 6 feet. She kept reminding us. Mrs. Albertson asked about you. She said to let you know you were in her prayers. She's a nice lady. Too bad about her husband. After the walk, we tried to do some social studies work that was in the packet, but neither one of them were interested, and I figured I had had enough too. So I split the difference and put on Disney's Pocahontas and I let it go. I had some calls to make and some work to do of my own, so it was an even trade. Dinner was a baked chicken breast and steamed broccoli. There were complaints from the peanut gallery, but I let them bury the chicken in ketchup and broccoli and cheese, and they seemed satisfied. Dessert was a popsicle, and Marcus said how much he missed your cakes. I offered to make him a cake tomorrow. He said no, he'd just wait for one of yours. He really does miss you. I told him he could send you the PowerPoint, but he said he didn't want you to look at bugs in the hospital. That might make somebody else sicker. He's a good kid. They both are. I see so much of you in them. The kindness, the caring, the empathy they have. Deb said after we saw Mrs. Albertson, she's sad, isn't she, Daddy? I told her yes. I asked her if she knew why, and she said, because Mr. Albertson died? Is that why? I told her yes. She said, I hope he's in heaven. I'm sure he is, I told her. We walked for a minute. She looked at me and she said, is he one of the people they show that died on the news? I told her that he was. She said, I liked him. He was a nice man. He would give me a penny every time I saw him. Yes, he was a very nice man, I told her. A very, very nice man. After dinner, we worked on a puzzle until bedtime. They were tired. They didn't fight me. I'm sure they were both sound asleep now. So that's it. Day 28 of quarantine. I hope this is what you wanted. I'll try and do one every day and send it to you. I'm going to keep copies so we can look at them after all this is over and try and remember some of the stuff we did and felt. I love you. I hope you know that. I miss you something horrible. But I understand. Please stay safe. Please take care of yourself. I tell you not to do anything that would hurt you, but that's silly. You'd run into a burning building if it meant you could save someone. That's just how you are. Send me a message back. And if you want to send one to the kids, I'll make sure they see them privately. I love you very much. Listen, I'm going to go put some Miles on. Would you just sit and listen to it with me for a little while? Pretend I'm holding your hand. Pretend I'm rubbing your feet. Just pretend I'm there. Or that you're here. We'll talk later. Bye, darling. He gets up from the camera and disappears. We hear the beginnings of Miles Davis's All Blues. Comes back to the shot, closes his eyes, and listens to the music. Hope you enjoyed.